Aloha, big kids. Miss Patton here. Today I have a story for us to share, and it's called Koaʻs Seed. And here in my book, I have my front cover, can you see it? There it is, my spine, and my back cover. And in our book here, Koaʻs Seed, it's retold by Carolyn Hahn. She wrote the words, so the author writes the words. Like here are some words I see. And the illustrator draws or colors the pictures. So the beautiful pictures on and inside our book. All right, here we go. Long ago in Hawaii, there lived an ali'i, a leader, whose once dark hair had turned the color of bleached shells. It was time now for him to appoint a successor. Whenever he was deep in thought, his fierce-looking eyebrows stuck out like tufts of dried seagrass. Although he had many sons and grandsons to choose from, he decided to do something different. He gathered the men and boys together in the large hale or house beside the water. It's time to select our next leader, the ali'i told the crowd. Shocked by his words, they whispered in low voices among themselves. Nothing like this has ever happened before. It was surprising for an ali'i to choose a leader outside of his family. He continued, Today, I will give each of you a seed for planting. In 1 year we will meet again, and you will bring me the plant that you have tended. He held out his large hand, and it was full of seeds. Each person took just one. A young man named Koa, wearing a fragrant mailele fashioned of glossy green leaves, was last in line. He chose his seed carefully. Does this story remind you of something, because what story does this remind you of? Holding it tightly in his fist, he ran to tell his mother. She listened and gave him a coconut shell cut in half with holes at the bottom for drainage. Koa placed pebbles and then soil in the shell and planted the seed. Each day he watered the seed. He watched. He waited. But nothing happened. The others in the village talked about their plants that were pushing up through the soil. How do you think that makes Koa feel when his seed is not pushing up through the soil? I would think he's feeling sad too. The main character is feeling a bit sad about his seed. Weeks passed and still nothing. Several times he wanted to dig up the seed to see if it had sprouted. Something's wrong, he thought, but he did not give up, and he hoped it would happen. Beautiful plants began to decorate the village, and some grew so big that they needed new pots. Koa hid his failure, as he called it. Six months went by, and still nothing. Koa frowned. He pushed back the strands of black hair from his wrinkled brow, and he looked or glared at the coconut shell. Could I have killed my seed with too much water? He wondered. A year passed, and it was time to meet at the hale and show what each person had grown. "I'm not taking the empty coconut shell," Koa said to his mother. "It's not empty," she said. "It's full of love and all your tender care." "But it doesn't have a plant," he argued. "You must keep a promise," she replied. And although Koa felt foolish, he carried his plantless coconut shell to the hale. He was relieved to find there were so many plants that it was easy to hide his coconut shell among them. Dressed in a red feather cape, the ali'i barely squeezed through the entrance of the hale. His intimidating presence made the people step back. "These are the most beautiful plants I've ever seen," he said. Together, the group breathed a sigh of relief and smiled back at him. When the ali'i walked among the people, he asked each of them what their secret was for growing such wonderful plants. His smile vanished when he noticed a coconut shell. "What is this?" he asked, and picked it up in his hand. For a moment, it looked as if his thick fingers might crush the coconut shell. Shutting his eyes and holding his breath, Koa wished he could disappear. When he opened his eyes, the ali'i was staring at him. Although he wanted to run, his feet would not obey. The boy standing nearby laughed and shoved him forward. Koa waited with his dark eyes lowered. "What's your name?" the ali'i asked. "My name is Koa," he said without looking up. Red-faced, he watched his bare feet for what seemed like an hour before the ali'i spoke. "Why did you bring me this coconut shell?" the ali'i questioned. "I am so sorry. My seed didn't grow," Koa replied. The shame of failure pressed on him like a heavy weight slumped on his shoulders. "You have no reason to apologize," the ali'i said, understanding how the young man was feeling. He placed his hand on Koa's shoulders and said, "Last year, I gave each of you a seed for planting. I told you to plant them. But the seeds I passed out had been boiled. None of them could possibly grow." The ali'i turned to the crowd. "When you found out that your seeds would not sprout, you substituted others. Only one person had the honesty and the courage to bring me the original seed, and that is why Koa will be our new ali'i." And that is the end of our story. So I was wondering, what does this story remind you of? Is there a different story that this reminds you of? Today, what I was thinking is in our journals, we could write about Koaʻs Seed. So we'll get out our journal page here. Remember, I always need to write my name at the top. And then we'll go ahead and we'll write the title on the line, and you can draw me a picture from the book. So the first letter is a capital K. So touch, pull down, slant, slant. Next one is our lowercase o. Touch, circle. Remember, our lowercase letters start at the dotted line. Our next letter is our A. Touch, circle, and pull down. Next, we need to make our little curve kind of flying in the sky here. It's called an apostrophe, and an S. Koaʻs Seed. Let's do our next word. S. It's a curve and a curve. This is a capital S. Next comes our E. I'm going to pull across and curve up and around. Another E. It's a tricky one. Try your best. Pull across, curve up and around. And our last letter is our D. Touch, circle, touch, down. Koaʻs Seed. So maybe you want to draw me a character from the story, like Koa, or the Ali'i was another character in our story. There are also many other boys in our story. Maybe you want to draw me something from the setting in the story, or where the story takes place. Maybe you want to tell me in your drawing how you thought this book was similar to another story. All right, big kids, I hope you have a wonderful day. Aloha!